Hey folks, I'm Steve Butler. When my wife and I decided to give our bathroom a makeover, well, we were big in ideas, but short on money. So we did it ourselves. Come see how we made this shelf unit here in the garage. Now, the nice thing about this project is that we're using materials that are readily available at your local home center or your hardware store. We're using off-the-shelf 1x6, 3/4 inch thick pine for our sides, our top, and our bottom shelf. We're then going to mill that same pine down to 1/2 inch for our shelves and our drawer parts. Now, we're going to use dados and rabbets to join the cabinet together, and then we're going to use tongue and groove joinery to create our drawer. And in the end, we're going to add some cove molding just to cap it off and give it a decorative look. All right, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we want to do is to cut our two side pieces, our gables, to 30 inches long. Before we do that, make sure you're wearing your safety glasses and hearing protection if you have it. Okay, now we need to cut 3 pieces 19 inches long. That'll give us our top, our bottom, and the fixed shelf. Now that I have one cut, I'm just going to use it as a template and trace the other one right off of that. So that's it. We basically have all our pieces cut for the cabinet. Now we're going to cut our dado and rabbet joints. All right, let me show you what I've done. I took out my regular saw blade and I added my stack dado blades. And if you're not familiar with stack dado blades, what they are is you have two, think of a sandwich. You have 2 blades on the outside, regular blades that score the wood, and then you have some cutters, and they nestle into each other just like putting your fingers like this. And that creates a wider cut. So I have 1/2 inch here, and what I'm going to do, let me show you my sample piece here. I'm going to cut 2 dados. Now, the first one is 4 inches from the bottom. We cut a 3/4 inch dado, 3/8 deep, and then we measure 4 inches up from that and cut another one. Then what we're going to do is cut a rabbet to accommodate our top piece, and then a rabbet along the edge to accommodate the back. All right, let's get going. I'm going to put on the dust collector. Now I've measured 4 inches up from the bottom. And we'll make our first cut. We're going to make 2 passes to get our 3/4 width. You don't want to go too fast or you're going to get a lot of tear out. And if you go too slow, you're going to get some burning and you're just going to have to sand that out later on. So you're making more work for yourself. So just a nice, even cut. I'm just going to test the fit. All right, that looks good. I'll go ahead and cut the second dado. We're using dado and rabbet joinery in the cabinet because that used to be typical cabinet construction, especially for kitchen cabinets. Nowadays they use pocket screws and biscuits and cover it with a face frame, but everything used to be done with the dados and rabbet joints. So it's a good project, especially for a beginner. There's a lot of joinery in this simple little bathroom project. Okay, now that we have our dados cut for our bottom and our fixed shelf, we need to cut a rabbet for the top. Now let me show you what I've done. I made a test piece. The rabbet is 3/4 inch long and it's 3/8 deep. So here I have cut on my test piece a rabbet, exactly that, 3/4 inch long, 3/8 deep. So all I have to do is snug that up against the blade, move my fence over, and then I know I have my true 3/4, and then raise the blade so it just hits the bottom of that, and I know I have my 3/8 depth. And then I keep this and I have it for next time. All right, let's cut that rabbet for the top. Now I'm going to do another pass just to get that 3/4 of an inch. There we go. We have our rabbet cut, our dados cut. Now we just need to cut a 1/2 inch rabbet to accommodate our back. All right, let me show you what I did. We have 1/2 inch stacked dado blades in there to give us a 1/2 inch wide rabbet. I've raised the blade 3/8, so our rabbet is 1/2 inch wide by 3/8 deep. Now I have a piece of plywood on here to act as a sacrificial fence. And what I've done is I've moved it and butted up right to the edge of that blade. Then all I need to do is move my board right across that, and we have our 1/2 inch rabbet created. So I need one on the back edge of our sides to accommodate the back, and I need one on the underneath of our top piece to accommodate the back. All right, let's get started. All right, that looks great. We have our rabbet cut for our back. We have a rabbet to accommodate our top piece. We have our dados cut for our bottom and our fixed shelf. I just need to go to our other side piece and cut that rabbet, and then we'll cut the rabbet on the top piece. Okay, essentially we have all the joinery cut for this project. Now what we need to do is drill a series of holes to accommodate our 1/2 inch shelves, and a hole that's going to accommodate a 3/4 inch dowel that's going to act as a towel rod. All right, we're using 3/4 inch dowel rod as a towel hanger. We're going to suspend that at the bottom of our cabinet. Now it's kind of arbitrary where I put it, but I just drew a line 1.5 inches up from the bottom and 2.5 inches in, and I used a center punch just to start it. I've put 3/4 inch Forstner bit in my drill press, and I'm going to use that little jig I used to set up the table saw to set up the depth of our Forstner bit, our drill. Okay, so just going to line this up, make sure it's center. And we're just going to drill this hole, and then we'll go and drill it in our other sides. All right, so now you can see how that's going to work. All right, let me do the other side. Okay, what I've done is I changed out our Forstner bits. I took out the 3/4 one and I put in a 1/4 inch Forstner bit, again to accommodate our 1/4 inch dowel shelf pins. Now what I need to do is to draw a series of lines to show where I'm going to drill those holes. Now it's kind of arbitrary. You can make a jig for this. If I was making multiple cabinets, I probably would make a jig that would show me where to lay out those holes, but I'm simply just going to mark them down. I chose 2.5 inches down, and then we're going to put a series of 3 shelf pin holes in 1.25 inches apart on the center. Just going to take my square and draw that line right along. Just lightly, you don't need to score the wood with the pencil tip. Okay. Now I'm going to measure again, 2.5 inches down, and I'm going at the 2-inch mark just because it's easier to read. And then 1.25 inches from there, 3 holes, 1.25 inches apart. All right, we're almost there. So I'm going to do a series of 3 of these. Now what I'm going to do is just set my square for 3/4 inch. And that's where we're going to come in from either side. And I'm just going to draw a line right down there. And there we go, that's it. Again, I'm going to use our little jig here just to set the depth. I'm just going to raise the table of the drill press ever so slightly. There we go. There we go. You can see how that's going to work. All right, I might trim these down a little just to help the shelf out. How this project come about? Well, you know, it came out of necessity, really. We really were trying to make over the bathroom, and we had it all painted. We put some molding in, but we needed a new cabinet. We couldn't find anything we liked. So, you know, we just decided to make one. There was a mirror on the opposite wall, so I didn't need to do a vanity with a mirror door or anything like that. So we just made a shelf unit, added a drawer just for a little something extra. Just my wife can put the hairpins in, you know, you put extra rolls of toilet paper in there and stuff like that. So yeah, it just came out of necessity. Okay, on the original cabinet, what I did on the inside edge of the sides and then around the shelf boards, the fixed shelf and the top, is I added a nice stop chamfer. You can see it right here. And you know, it just adds a nice little decorative effect, kind of lightens it up. All right, so what I did, I've set up my router table. Now I have a very nice router table, but in a pinch what I like to use is this one. It's simply a piece of shelf that I cut a hole in it to accommodate the router bit. You can buy smaller compact router tables. But if you're not in the market for that, you don't have the money for it, or you're in a small workspace, you can just make your own. They do not have to be complicated. Like I said, I simply drilled a hole in it so my router bit would fit through. I attached my router, and I've set up a wooden fence here. I've put on a dust port that I've attached my shop vac to, and so it'll collect the chips. Anyway, so what I've done, to do the stop chamfer, I've drawn a couple of lines, and that just tells me where to begin and where to end. I don't want to run that chamfer all the way through. So what I do is I put my board up against my fence and you pivot into it. If you don't have that board up against the fence, the bit can grab it and throw it on you. All right, let's get going. think we're ready to dry assemble. All right, I went ahead and sanded our cabinet parts. Now I still need to make the drawer and I still need to cut the back, but I like to have the cabinet assembled first so then I can take a hard read right off of the back and the drawer opening. That way if I made a mistake on the table saw and all the parts and they're 1/8 of an inch too small or something, I can accommodate that. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna glue and assemble our cabinet. We're just gonna throw some glue on the shoulders of our dados. Now you don't want copious amounts. If you put too much on, you're just going to make more work for yourself down the road in cleaning this up. But you do need enough for it to do its job. So just using a little acid brush here, putting this on right on the L of the dado, just the shoulder of it. Okay, now we want some in our dowel hole as well. And I'm going to wait before I put some in the rabbet for our top. That'll slip in a little afterwards. All right, just going to go around, put that in. We want to make sure our chamfer face is out towards the front. And flush at the back. And I'm just going to turn this over. And I've drawn lines right across the middle of the dado so I know where to put my brads in. And we'll go around afterwards, fill in those brad holes with some putty. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to mount this to the wall. You could just simply drill some screw holes through it and countersink them. That'll work especially if you're going to paint it, because then you paint over the screw heads. If you're not going to paint it, it's better you can buy some mounting hardware, just metal brackets that fit onto the back of the cabinet, and then they attach onto screws on the wall. Or you could do what's called a French cleat, which is really, really strong and durable. You basically cut a piece of wood in half on the 45, so you end up with two pieces of wood with a 45-degree angle cutting them, and they only have to be 1/2 inch thick. They don't have to be too thick. You mount one on the back of the cabinet with the 45-degree facing down, and the other one on the wall, the 45-degree facing up, and they connect and hook into each other. So there's many ways to mount the cabinet to the wall. All right, I cut my back piece to size, but let me show you what I've done. On a scrap piece, I made a series, these are my test cuts, of saw curves. And why I'm doing that is I want to mimic beadboard or tongue and groove pine with our 1/2 inch plywood. I could use solid boards for the back, but then I have to think about expansion and contraction. This is going to be in a high moisture area in the bathroom. So I'm using plywood for the back. And I basically just want to run 3 grooves equal from the sides and 1 down the middle of the plywood. So here are my test cuts. So I raised the blade about 1/8 of an inch. We measure, I'm going just, it's kind of arbitrary, but I chose 4.5 inches, and I'm going to run that down on the center. And it should be a nice effect. All right. It's going to look great. It's going to turn it over and then do the same thing on the other end. All right, our back is 19 inches wide, so I just want to set the fence. We're going to make a cut right down the middle, or a saw curve down the middle. So I'm just going to set the fence at 9.5 inches. again, it's just a little bit of design, just adds to what is a simple cabinet. So we're just going to place it in our rabbets in our back. Oh, that fits nicely. I drew a couple of lines, carried that over, and so I can know where my shelf is, and we're just going to go around some threads and tack this in. If you wanted to, you could glue this in. It's plywood. It's not going to expand and contract like solid wood, but I think we're fine just tacking it in. No one's going to be tugging on it. All right, that's looking great. Let's go make our drawer. All right, I went ahead and I milled down our stock for our shelves and for our drawer material to 1/2 inch thick. I cut our drawer material to size, and we're using tongue and groove joinery to assemble it. I have my 2 side pieces, my back piece, the front piece, and we're using some 1/4 inch plywood for the bottom. Now I have 2 blades from the dado set in here to create a 1/4 inch cut. And that's going to be our groove. That's going to go on the inside of our front piece. And then on the sides, we're going to cut a 1/4 inch tongue. So if you see where that pencil is, that's all going to be cut out. A 1/4 inch tongue to fit in that groove. All right, first thing I'm going to do is cut out the grooves on our front piece. That looks good. Just going to turn it in for in, do the other one. All right, now we just need to cut the tongues on our sides and fit them in. Nice. Now a good fit with either a mortise and tenon or a tongue and groove. You saw I just put that in there. I didn't need a lot of pressure. I didn't have to use a mallet. You hold it upside down. It should not slide out. And yet I can take it out easily. The glue is going to make this swell a little bit. If it was too tight, you could end up cracking that joint. Yeah, the original cabinet I painted white. But you know, I made a mistake. What I didn't do, and I should have shellacked it first. This is knotty pine, and the knots tend to bleed, and if you don't shellac it, that can bleed through the paint. So for this cabinet, I mean, you can paint it, but try to seal in the knots first with a coat of shellac. You can put a varnish on it. It's in a high moisture area. I think what I'm going to do for this one is I'm just going to leave it the natural pine. I'll put a coat of shellac on it. That might put a little amber hue to the cabinet, but I'm just going to let it age gracefully. All right, I went ahead and I assembled this drawer. Let me show you what I did. I added a brass pole. I think it looks really nice against the natural pine. I drilled a hole with the Forstner bit, and the reason I did that is if you look underneath the top shelf, I added a little button here, and that's going to act as a drawer stop. Last thing you want to do is to pull this drawer out and have it and its contents fall on you. So simple popsicle stick, drilled a hole in it, screwed it on with a brass screw and a ring washer, just adds a nice effect. And when you turn it, it blocks against that button and acts as a drawer stop. Put that in there. This is a piston fit drawer. There's no drawer runners, just fits nicely in there. It's solid wood, so it's going to expand and contract a little bit, so we wanted to leave some room for that. There we go. That looks great. I'm really happy with the way this project turned out. We have our shelves with our shelf pins in there. The plywood with the saw curves in there, mimicking like a tongue and groove or a beadboard, looks really nice. We have our decorative molding on top, just again to, you know, add a little aesthetic to the cabinet. We have our towel rod, and at the front here, just to lighten it up, this is going to hang on the wall, so we don't want it to look too monolithic. We just cut some 45-degree angles off of that, and it looks really good. All right, Once again, I had a blast building this project with you. I hope you come back and see us again in the garage.
Just found your number, thought I'd drop you a line. You know I've been out on this road such a long, long time. Just wanted to let you know I'm doing just fine. But hey, I'm doing fine out here on the road. As long as I have friends to call, I'm never alone. Folks wonder how I take all that drive.
All right, I went ahead and I milled down our boards that we need for our drawers, as well as our shelf.